Chronological Bible, and we finally reached event number 36 out of 36 for Jesus' Galilean ministry. That is the first part of his ministry, and we're likely around the springtime of AD 29, and it tells us that the 12 returned. Remember, Jesus has sent them out not too long ago to share the gospel, to heal the sick, and to drive out demons. We don't get much of a report. It just says they reported back what they did. And Jesus is evidently very aware of their being very tired. And he said, "Come, let's withdraw from the multitudes, and let's go to a desolate place." And so they go across the Sea of Galilee again, and they wind up in a place that's quite removed from all of the towns and villages, even though a multitude of people have followed them to this place. And so we find them at Bethsaida, 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 northeast tip of the Sea of Galilee. And I have a question for you. Jesus, well, actually, I have 5 or 6 questions for you. Jesus has said that there's a great number of people that have come, and his disciples are asking him to send them away to the cities and towns nearby so that they can get something to eat because they've become hungry. And Jesus says, "No, you feed them." I want you to answer 5 questions for me. First, how many loaves and how many fish did they have to feed this multitude of people? Second question, if you read all 3 gospel accounts, where did they get the loaves and the fish? Third question, if you read this event in all 3 of the gospels, then we want to know how many leftovers were there? How many leftovers were there after the people ate? And did each of the people, this is a true or false question, get just a little bit to take the edge off of their hunger? Did each of the people get just a little bit to take the edge off of their hunger? Yes or no? True or false? Number 5, how many people were fed? Be careful. How many people were fed? Number 6 and 7. I've always said that these events are very important and very informative, but they're also to be applied to our lives. Give me 2 ways that you could apply this story of the feeding of the multitude to your life. What should you learn from this particular event in Jesus' life and his Galilean ministry? Let me give you a minute to think about those things. We'll go ahead and tell the rest of the story, and then in telling the rest of the story, there was very little reported back, but they went across the sea. They're in the north eastern tip of the Sea of Galilee, and his disciples come to him and say, "We need to feed these people," and he says, "You feed them." As you read all 3 events in Matthew 14, Mark 6, Luke 9, and John 6, you find out that they find 2 fish and 5 loaves. 2 fish and 5 loaves. And it turns out that they found them from a little boy that volunteered them. Okay, so we know that there were 5 loaves and 2 fish. We know the source is the little boy. And it tells us on these accounts very consistently that they picked up 12 bushels of leftovers. They only started with 5 loaves and 2 fish, but they picked up, said, "Where would we buy such? It would cost us 200 denarii to feed all of these people." That's the equivalent of $6,000 to $7,000. So that's a lot of money that it would have cost to feed all of these people, but Jesus did it with the 5 loaves and 2 fish, and they picked up the 12 baskets. And then we asked the question, how many people were fed? And if you said 4,000, you were definitely wrong, because that's not this incident, this event. If you said 5,000, you're still wrong, because the answer is we don't know how many he fed. They fed 5,000 men, but it says plus women and children. Well, that was a trick question, wasn't it? And then finally, the two ways that you can apply this to your life. Well, there's an awful lot of ways to apply this to your life. I've heard lots of sermons preached on the feeding of the 5,000. And one is, of course, as little as much when Jesus is in it. Second one is that Jesus can supply all of our needs according to his riches and glory. The third one, of course, is very, very clear, and that is that Jesus has compassion. It told us that very early in this particular event, and we need to remember that Jesus has compassion. But I think there's probably one that most of you missed. Jesus knows we all need rest. Do you remember, as you heard the beginning of each of these events in each of the Gospels, Jesus looked at his disciples, his 12 that had been out and working. He says, come on, let's go rest a while. We all need rest. Now, that's not an excuse to be lazy. Please don't read that into it. But when you've worked hard for the Lord, sometimes you need to back off a little bit. Sometimes you need to slow down a little bit and get some rest. Jesus knows you need it, and he has compassion, and he's probably going to show you a way that you can get that. He's probably going to remind you that you need it. And we all should remember that it's great to work hard for the Lord, but occasionally you need to take a little break. And that's my thought for the day. God bless you and have a great day. A lot of people think that everybody's going to heaven. They think that because God is a good God that he wouldn't possibly let anybody go to hell. But he doesn't want anybody to go to hell. It clearly says that in the scriptures. It clearly tells us in the book of Romans that we're all sinners. That includes me, believe me. And that we've all sinned and fall short of the glory of God. We all deserve the wages of sinners' death. We deserve to be separated from God for an eternity because he sent his son Jesus to die for us. That if we would believe in him, turn from sin and self and turn to him and him alone, we could have eternal life in heaven because he died on the cross of Calvary for us. He was the perfect sacrifice. He was the one that if we would believe in him, we could have eternal life. Now that doesn't mean we can live any way we want to. But he said himself, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. The way is narrow, but it's easy. It's easy to turn away from sin and self and find the fullness of God, the fullness of joy. And then to know that this world isn't all that we have to look forward to, that we have a place in heaven, a place prepared for us, a place so wonderful we'll never compare it to this earth. Why not take a moment right now and say, Lord, I'm a sinner. I know that you died for me, and I want you to come into my heart, and I want you to take over my life. I want you to allow me to have eternal life because of Jesus' death on the cross. And that's my thought for the day. God bless you.